In this video, we're going to take a look at Replay Node. Replay Node is a SDK component that extends Apache Camel. The point of it is to, well, several things. Firstly, to be able to have full audit and oversight over everything that goes through your interface, to be able to provide the operational support that allows you to inject messages into queues with a level of control that you don't get with the browser. The browser is very powerful, but if you're using a service account to inject messages into a service bus, particularly with payments, you need some sort of some governance on that. So we're going to look at a real-world service that we're actually working on at UniCredit, an e-banking project. Now this has in the e-banking runner, it has 4 routes. There are 2 main routes which take data from the e-banking payment system, send them to the payment manager. Another route that takes responses from the payment manager and sends them back to the e-banking application. The other 2 routes here are Replay Node routes. So if we go to our service builder, we can load the project that was deployed to that using this over-the-air loader. And if we go to the wizard, the route wizard, we can see the details. So this one, the top route, is consuming from the payments and sending it to this endpoint, this ActiveMQ endpoint. This one is going the other way. But what they're all doing is going through Replay Node. Robo Replay Node, it's got a name, eBanking to NPM, and it's in capture mode. These other routes allow you to play back. So if you want to define a source node for Replay Node where your message is going to come from, that's here. So here, this route starts from Replay Node with a name, and it's in Replay Node. And there are one of these in both directions. So from a coding perspective, that's pretty much all that you need to do, other than provide the SDK component to support it. Then, if you look at Replay Node itself, the agent has now analyzed the contents of the project, and the capture nodes are here, and the playback nodes are here. This area shows you all of the messages that have gone through the interface. And I can filter by a bunch of these things. So I could say, show me all the messages that have been published by Chris Tarpey. I apply that, and it writes some SQL. So if you're not particularly tech savvy, you can use this GUI to create all the conditions and predicates, and it will generate the SQL for you. If you want to get a bit more involved, then there's a Direct SQL tab. Perhaps I want these IDs to be ordered. Order, let's word wrap that. Order by ID, and I can apply that. Then it's in size order, and that query I can save it if I want to use it. So I can have a bunch of persistent queries. So here you might be wanting to search for particular messages from particular capture nodes. Something else it lets you do is the data itself, you don't want to put in the database because it could be potentially enormous. Very quickly, you'd run into issues with your database. So the files are stored on disk, but the metadata for each file is stored in the execution agent's database. When the messages come through, you can specify in the Replay Node configuration, you can specify a helper class. So because you're the person building your service, you understand your data. So the things that might be important to you, you might consider the counterparty, the venue code, and say the trade ID might be the 3 things that you're interested in. So you would implement the RoboMQ's interface to provide a primary and a secondary and a tertiary value. And those will be put in the database, and they're indexed, so it's very quick. So if, for example, if you built a trade ID, somebody comes along and says, show me all the messages that have ever pertained to that trade ID. Just tick that, put the trade ID in, and apply that, and you feel obviously there's nothing in the database with that key, so it doesn't work. But now if it doesn't show any results, sorry. So if I double click on one of these messages, I can see the payload, which is a payment message from Steinway and Sons. If I wanted to send that on, I could click this, the target, and publish it. I'm not going to do because it's a UniCredit interface, but I could publish as an update, which would capture the parent ID, will be stored against the message, and then I can show the whole message chain. So, and I can also add an audit note to say why this update was done. So what that means is that I can give this to a operator who might be responsible for looking after it, the runtime. So maybe the use case is that the target endpoint was down because the queue manager was under maintenance, so the message failed. So I can come on here and I can replay it and replay it again and again until into the replay node until the message goes through. Maybe there was an issue on the target system where some counterparty's not been set up, so it fails for that reason. Again, if the data needs modifying, I can modify the data, add an audit note as to why I'm doing it, and publish it as a new or an update to a message. But at no point have I ever had to see any of this information, which is the connection details and the user IDs and the credentials that that would allow me to connect in an unaudited fashion to the queue manager. RoboMQ keeps an audit trail as well separately to Replay Node, which if I take a look at, so I've done some message injections here, as I made this a while ago. So I've got a full audit site, so message injection for Replay Node to that node, done by OS user. That's my UniCredit ID. I have a RoboMQ ID as well, the time I did it, and the host name that this came from. So I can see pretty much everything. And maybe I want to just give people access to view these messages but not actually publish. So RoboMQ has a fairly fine-grained security model. So if I go to my agent configuration and I look at this e-banking thing, so the client is what logs into the agent. So I can specify an agent login, and in fact I have done already. I've got a CTARP login for e-banking dev. If I configure the security, I'm going to log in as super user into the agent. So here I can see that firstly security is disabled. So I'm going to switch on security. So for this top panel controls what I can do at the agent level. So clearing event log, for example, is an agent-wide application. Things that are specific to the runners are defined. The permissions are done in this one. So in this one, I have permissions to do everything except publish to Replay Node. So we're going to put that to the test now. So if I go back to my Replay Node view and I try and inject a message into here, let's say, should hopefully fail. Agent does not grant access with supplied credentials. So I can control who can do what when, and I can give this to people with a variety of different job functions and grant them access to basically only what they need. And that's it for this tutorial.